So hello everybody. In this presentation, I'm going to talk about inversion. This is related to the course English Language 7, taught by Professor Carlos Veloso and myself, Jose Luis Poblete. So the main question that I'm going to answer is what inversion is. Sometimes this is also called stylistic inversion. So what is inversion? Inversion happens in English for emphasis, for example, or sometimes for dramatic purpose, or let's say in some other cases for formality, or most likely in written language. Well, this type of inversion uses negative and limiting adverbs. These are a group of adverbs which limit the meaning of a verb and make it negative. We can think of adverbs such as never, hardly, no, only, and many others. So here in this slide, we can see an example, and I'm going to use inversion to exemplify, let's say, its use. So I had never met someone so interesting, and if we use inversion, it becomes never had I met someone so interesting. So in this case, the effect that the speaker would like to create is the effect of emphasis. The second example, he won't often go to work, and if we use inversion, the result can be not often will he go to work. So as you can see, the order changes, and also let's say the emphasis, of course, that is placed on both examples. So one of the most common, let's say, inversion types is after negative adverbials. So this only occurs when the adverbial occurs at the beginning of a clause. So I'm going to explain this in more detail. And here, just to remind you, these examples used below are normally found in formal language. They are not usually found in everyday spoken language. For example, something that we might say in everyday language, I have never heard a weaker excuse. Now, if we use inversion, we're going to come across never have I heard a weaker excuse. So in this way, let's say we can create the effect of emphasis again, or maybe if we would like to be more dramatic, or if this sounds, let's say, much more formal. We can also use inversion with time expressions such as never, rarely, and seldom. Uh, these adverbs are usually combined with present perfect or past perfect, or sometimes with modal verbs such as can and could. For example, we can say something like, rarely can a person have been calm with such a problem. So here again, as you can see, the first word is the adverbial or the adverb, and then the modal verb. The second example says, seldom has the dance group given a worse performance in the competition. Again, as you can see, the first part is the adverb or the adverbial, and then let's say here we're using present perfect with has. We can also use it with other time expressions such as hardly, barely, scarcely, and no sooner. So these expressions are usually used to refer to an event which quickly follows another in the past. For example, we can say something like, hardly had he left the room when the phone rang. So this is a quick succession of events. No sooner had I reached the door than I realized it was locked. So here also, let's say if you look at the second one, we're using no sooner had I reached than I realized. So that's also important to understand. So here the inversion happens, hardly had he left, instead of just saying after he left, for example. And in the second case, the expression no sooner goes with than. We can also use inversion after only, but here only combines with other time expressions, usually past simple. For example, only after sending the paper did I remember that I had forgotten to check the vocabulary. So here we can see this is the effect by placing, only at the beginning, and here by using inversion in the expression I remembered becomes did I remember. Other examples are only if, or only when, only then, and only later. So let's say there is an exception though. when only refers to the state of being the only one, there's no inversion following it. For example, only Mary realized that the door wasn't locked. So here we cannot use it because, let's say, it is only one. In the previous case, it has to do with let's say, after an event. Let's say in the case of after sending the paper. There are some other phrases that contain the expressions no or not, and these include under no circumstances, on no account, at no time, in no way, on no condition, not until, not only, but also. And I'm going to provide a couple of examples now. On no condition are they allowed to leave the classroom without permission. And this again sounds like formal English. This sounds like a rule or something that may be written on paper. Also, we can say, not until I got home did I notice that I had the wrong key. So here, the expression not until something happened did I notice. So here the effect can be for dramatic purposes or again for emphasis. Another very common expression that we use, let's say, with inversion is little. So little has a negative or restrictive meaning in this sense. For instance, little does the government appreciate what the results will be. So in this case, what the meaning is that the government does not appreciate the results or what the results will be. Or also, little did he know that they would never meet again. He didn't know that they would never meet again. So this is like the effect that you can let's say cause with little in inversion. We can also use inversion after so or such, let's say, with that, and I'm going to explain or give some more details about that. Inversion after so. So this occurs with so and adjectives when the main verb is to be or be, and this is of course used for emphasis, and it's very common. We can find this expression in English, let's say, very very commonly. So devastating were the floods that some areas may never recover. For instance, we we can also use inversion after such. Such used to with be means so much or so great. Such was the force of the earthquake that many houses were destroyed. Let's say in this way, here the emphasis is really clear because we can just say the force of the earthquake was such that many houses were destroyed. And here we get to the point of one of the most important usages or uses of inversion. So we can also use inversion with conditional sentences, but without if. So here, as you can see, there are three, let's say, examples. And also this is going to exemplify the three different types of using inversion, let's say in the first sentence with if, and in the second one without if. So if we take a look at the first one, if the police had found out, they would have been in trouble. And that becomes, were the police to have found out, they would have been in trouble, which again sounds more formal, for example. The second one says, if he has stolen, he will have to be punished, and that becomes, should he have stolen, comma, he will have to be punished. And the last one reads, if I had known, comma, I would have broken up with him before. And then here again, if is going to disappear, and this will become, had I known, comma, I would have broken up with him before. And this is one of the, let's say, last cases where we can find inversion after as. And this is again more common in formal written language. So one of the first example reads, we were short of money, as were most people in our country. So here again, we can find inversion probably in formal language. And the second example reads, I thought, as did my parents, that the recession would be over soon. And let's say one of the last examples is inversion after so, neither, or nor, which is something that we can find, let's say, in spoken language as well. So we can usually use them in agreeing or disagreeing statement. For example, and you're going to probably recognize them. So one person can say, I'm going home, and the other person says, so am I. So here there is inversion. And also when we use this in negative form, which is I do not like liars, and the other person might say, neither do I. So yeah, so here we can find, let's say, lots of examples of inversion. And of course, if you have any questions, you can just send us an email. And also we're going to discuss this in class, and also we're going to take a look at some exercises now. So thank you for your attention.